Good morning, students. I am Riya Sinha.
Today we are going to start chapter number 6 of history, that is new questions and ideas.
In this chapter, we will discuss about the changes or new questions which emerged in the latter period. This chapter starts with the topic the story of the Buddha. Siddhartha, also known as Gautam, the founder of Buddhism, was born about 2500 years ago. This was a time of rapid change in the lives of people. Some kings in the Mahajanpads were growing more powerful, new cities were developing, and life was changing in the villages as well. So many thinkers were trying to understand these changes in society and they also wanted to try and find out the true meaning of life. This story begins with the central character named Siddharth, who, uh, who was also known as Gautam or the founder of the Buddhism. He was born about 2500 years ago. This was a time of rapid change in the lives of the people. Mahajanpads were growing powerful, new cities were developing, lives were changing. So many thinkers were started thinking about the society or the changes which uh, they could do in the society. The Buddha belonged to a small Jan known as Shakya Jan and was a Kshatriya. When he was a young man, he left the comforts of his home in search of knowledge. He wandered for several years, meeting and holding discussions with other thinkers. He finally decided to find his own path to realization and meditated for days on end under a peepal tree at Bodh Gaya in Bihar, where he attained enlightenment. The Buddha or the Gautam Buddha belonged to a small Jan known as Shakya Jan. When he was a young man, he left the comforts because he was Kshatriya, so he had all the comforts. He left his home in search of knowledge. He wandered for several years, then he finally decided to find his own path to realization and meditated for several days under a peepal tree at Bodh Gaya in Bihar, where finally he got attainment or enlightenment. After that, he was known as the Buddha or the Wise One. Buddha who has knowledge of everything or the wise person. He then went to Sarnath near Varanasi where he taught for the first time. He spent the rest of his life traveling on foot, going from place to place, teaching people till he passed away at Kushinara. Means he went to Sarnath near Varanasi where he taught for the first time. Then he spent his rest of his life in traveling on foot and going from place to place and preaching there or teaching people. And at last, at Kushinara, he passed away. The Buddha taught that life is full of sufferings and unhappiness. This is caused because we have cravings and desires. Sometimes, even if we get what we want, we are not satisfied and want even more. The Buddha described this as thirst or tanha. He taught that this constant craving could be removed by following moderation in everything. According to Buddha, our human life is full of suffering and unhappiness because we have different cravings and desires to achieve anything. So, if we get what we want, then we are not satisfied and we want even more. So, the Buddha described this as thirst or tanha. He taught that this constant craving could be removed by following moderation in everything. He also taught people to be kind and to respect the lives of others, including animals. He believed that the result of our actions, or whatever karma we used to do in our day to day life, whether good or bad, it affects us both in this life and the next one. The Buddha taught in the language of the ordinary people, that is Prakrit, so that everybody could understand his message. He also encouraged people to think for themselves rather than to simply accept what he said. See, a story is given, the story of Kissa Gautami. This is a famous story about the Buddha. Once there was a woman named Kissa Gautami whose son had died. She was so sad that she roamed through the streets of the city, carrying the child with her, asking for help to bring him back to life. A kind man took her to the Buddha. Then the Buddha said, "Bring me a handful of mustard seeds and I will bring your child back to life." Buddha uh, said that you have to give me a handful of mustard seed, then I will bring your back to life, bring your child back to life. So Kissa Gautami was overjoyed and started off at once, but the Buddha gently stopped her and added, "The seeds must come from the house of a family where nobody has died." Kissa Gautami went from door to door, but wherever she went, she found out that someone or the other, father, mother, sister, brother, husband, wife, child, uncle, aunt, grandfather, grandmother, someone has died. So, by this story or by this saying, Buddha just wanted to tell that lady, Kissa Gautami, that everyone in this world has to die. There is no one, there is no exception, that all will meet together. Now, see the next topic, Upanishads. Around the time that the Buddha was preaching, and perhaps a little earlier, other thinkers also tried to find answers to difficult questions. And some of them wanted to know about uh, life after death, others wanted to know why sacrifices should be performed, and many of these thinkers felt that there was something permanent in the universe that would last even after death. They described this as the Atma or the individual soul and the Brahman or the universal soul. They believed that ultimately both the Atma and the Brahman were one. Many of their ideas were recorded in the Upanishads, and these were part of the later Vedic text. Upanishad literally means approaching and sitting near, and the text contained conversations between teachers and students. Often, ideas were presented through simple dialogues. Most Upanishadic thinkers were men, especially Brahmins and Rajas. Occasionally, there is mention of women thinkers such as Gargi, who was famous for her learning and participated in debates held in royal courts. Poor people rarely took part in these discussions, and one famous exception was Satyakama Jabala, who was named after his mother, the slave woman Jabali. He had a deep desire to learn about reality and was accepted as a student by a Brahmin teacher named Gautam and became one of the best known thinkers of the time. And many of the ideas of the Upanishads were later developed by the famous thinker Shankaracharya, about whom you will study in further classes. So, Today we have completed about we have learned about Buddha, his thinking, his preaching, about Upanishads, the story of Kissa Gautami and all. Jainism. The last and 24th Tirthankar of the Jains, Vardhaman Mahavir, also spread his message around this time, that is 2500 years ago. He was a Kshatriya prince of the Lichavi, a group that was part of the Vajji Sangh, about which we have uh, read in the earlier chapter. So, mainly, we are going to study about Vardhaman Mahavir, who was the 24th Tirthankar of the Jain, and this story is also about 2500 years ago. Vardhaman Mahavir was a Kshatriya prince of the Lichavi, which was a part of the Vajji Sangh. At the age of 30, he left home and went to live in the forest. For 12 years, he led a hard and lonely life, and at the end of which he attained enlightenment. So, at the age of 30, he left home like Buddha and went to the forest. And after 12 years, uh, he got enlightenment. He taught a simple doctrine: men and women who wished to know the truth must leave their homes. Means, according to Vardhaman Mahavir, all the men and women who wished to know the about the truth, or who wished to know the truth, they must leave their homes. They must follow very strictly the rules of ahimsa, which means not hurting or killing living beings. Living beings means all living beings, said Mahavir, long to live. So, to all the things, life is dear. Ordinary people could understand the teachings of Mahavir and his followers because they used Prakrit language. As like Buddha, Buddha also used to preach in local language so that people can understand it in a better way. So, there were several forms of Prakrit used in different parts of the country and named after the regions in which they were used. For example, the Prakrit spoken in Magad was known as Magadhi. Followers of Mahavir, who were known as Jain, had to lead very simple lives, begging for food. They had to be absolutely honest and were specially asked not to steal. Also, they had to observe celibacy, and men had to give up everything, including their clothes. Means, all the Jains who were followers of Mahavir had to live simple life. They uh, used to spend their life by begging for food. They had to be honest, and they had to give up their everything, including their clothes. So it was very difficult for most men and women to follow these strict rules. Nevertheless, thousands left their homes to learn and teach this new way of life. Many more remained behind and supported those who became monks and nuns and providing them with food. Jainism was supported mainly by traders, farmers who had to kill insects to protect their crops found it more difficult to follow the rules. Most of the people uh, did not follow Jainism at that time because it was very difficult for them to learn properly and to follow all the rules which are provided or guided by Vardhaman Mahavir. Jainism was supported mainly by the traders. Farmers had to kill the insects to protect their crops, so it would be difficult for them to follow the rules of Jainism. Over hundred of years, Jainism spread to different parts of North India and to Gujarat, Tamil Nadu, and Karnataka. The teachings of Mahavir and his followers were transmitted orally for several centuries. They were written down in the form in which they are presently available at a place called Vallabhi in Gujarat and about 1500 years ago. So, mainly Jainism spread in Tamil Nadu, Gujarat, and Karnataka, and the teachings of Mahavir and his followers were transmitted orally for several centuries. Some of these were written down in the form which they are presently available at a place called Vallabhi in Gujarat about 1500 years ago. Now, come to the next topic, the Sangh. Both the Mahavir and the Buddha felt that only those who left their homes could gain true knowledge. They arranged for them to stay together in the Sangh, an association of those who left their homes. So, Sangh means an association of those who left their homes. Basically, they used to left their homes to gain true knowledge or to attain enlightenment. The rules made for the Buddhist Sangh were written down in a book called Vinay Pitaka. From this, we know that there were separate branches for men and women. All men could join the Sangh. However, children had to take the permission of their parents and slaves that of their masters. And those who worked for the king had to take his permission and debtors that of creditors. So women had to take their husband's permission. Men and women who joined the Sangh led very simple life. They meditated for the most of the time and went to cities and villages to beg for food during fixed hours. So that's why they were known as bhikkhus. Bhikkhus is mainly a Prakrit word for renouncer or beggar. Bhikkhus and bhikkhunis. They were also considered as bhikshus and they taught others and helped one another. They also held meetings to settle any quarrels and took place within the Sangh. Those who joined the Sangh included Brahmins, Kshatriya, merchants, laborers, barbers, courtesans, and slaves. So many of them wrote down the teachings of the Buddha, and some of them also composed beautiful poems describing their life in the Sangh. Mainly, these Sangh are the association of those who left their homes to gain enlightenment. Men and women both could join the Sangh, but in the case of women and children or any debtor, they had to take the permission of their masters. They used to beg for food during fixed hours in a day. That's why they were also considered as bhikshus. They taught and helped one another, and if any quarrel took place within the Sangh, then they used to held meetings to settle that quarrel. Those who joined the Sangh, including Brahmin, Kshatriya, merchants, or anyone, then many of them wrote down teachings of the Buddha, and some of them also composed beautiful poems describing the life of the Sangh. Now, come to the next topic, that is monasteries. So, to begin with, both Jain and Buddhist monks went from place to place throughout the year teaching people. The only time they stayed in one place was during the rainy season when it was very difficult to travel. Obviously, in rain, we even don't want to go outside. So, at that time, when it was rainy season, so they used to be at one place. Then their supporters built temporary shelters for them in gardens or they lived in natural caves in hilly areas. As time went on, many supporters of the monks and nuns and they themselves felt the need for more permanent shelters and so monasteries were built. Obviously, for that time when they used to need temporary shelters, for that time they need some kind of shelter or some kind of place in which they used to stay. So, as the time went on, some of the supporters of the monks and nuns they provided them permanent shelter, and so monasteries were built. These were known as viharas or vihars. The earliest vihars were made of wood and then of brick. Some were even in caves that were dug out in hills, especially in western India. Very often, the land on which the vihar was built was donated by a rich merchant or a landowner or the king. The local people came with gifts of food, clothing, and medicines for the monks and nuns. In return, they taught the people, and over the centuries, Buddhism spread to many parts of the subcontinent and even beyond. Now, see, a topic is given in your book, The System of Ashrams. Now, what is that? Around the time when Jainism and Buddhism were becoming popular, Brahmins developed the system of ashrams. Now, what was actually the system of ashrams? Basically, the word ashram does not mean the place where people live and meditate. It is used instead for a stage of life. Ashram means stage of life. So, four ashrams were recognized: Brahmacharya, Grihast, Vanprasth, and Sannyas. Brahmin, Kshatriya, and Vaishya men were expected to lead simple lives and study the Vedas during the early years of their life. And that early years of their life in which they used to study, that phase of life were known as Brahmacharya. Then they had to marry and live as householders, which was known as Grihas. Then they had to live in the forest and meditate, which were considered as one trust. And finally, they had to give up everything and become sannyas. The system of ashrams allowed men to spend some part of their lives in meditation. Generally, women were not allowed to study the Vedas and they had to follow the ashrams chosen by their husbands. Okay, so we have completed the explanation part of this chapter. So, hope you all understood it well. Thank you and have a nice day.